Welcome to the Folktale Project. This is Dan Scholz. This week, as I promised, we have a number of tales about apples. And we're going to begin with a poem, In the Orchard by George Weatherby. And then we're going to go on to a singularly American tale, the story of Johnny Appleseed. This is In the Orchard. Oh, the apples rosy red, oh, the gnarled trunks gray and brown, heavy branched overhead, oh, the apples rosy red, oh, the merry laughter sped as the fruit is showered down. Oh, the apples rosy red, oh, the gnarled trunks gray and brown. And this is the story of Johnny Appleseed. Once there was a man who was very, very poor. He had been a farmer, and no one raised such fine crops as he did. By and by, in some way, he lost his farm and was left all alone. He had always wanted to do some grand thing, something that would make many people happy, but what could he do? He had no money. All he had was a small boat. As he trudged along one day, he saw some old sacks lying under a tree. As he looked at them, he had a splendid thought, a thought that seemed to have wings and came flying from far away. Oh, it was a beautiful thought, and seemed to be singing a little song in his heart as he picked up the sacks and placed them in his boat, jumped in himself, and floated away. As he rowed down the stream, the man watched the shore with keen eyes. When he saw an apple orchard, he rowed to land, tied his boat, hastened to the homes near the orchards, and asked for work. He cut wood, carried water, and did all sorts of odd chores. In payment for this work, he asked for food. And what else do you suppose? The people were so surprised at what he asked for that they could hardly believe him. He asked that he might have the seeds from the apples on the ground under the trees. Only the seeds. Of course, they gladly gave him such a simple thing, and as he cut the fruit, the neighbor children swarmed about him. From one place to another he went, always adding to his store of seeds. Some generous farmers gave him also cuttings of pear, peach, and plum trees, and grapevines. Day after day, he cut up the fruit, while the children sat at his feet and listened to thrilling tales of what he had seen in his travels. Of the Indians with their gay blankets and feathers, of their camps where they lived in the forests, of their dances and war paint, their many-colored beaded necklaces and jingling silver chains and bracelets, of their beady-eyed babies strapped to boards, or of the wolves which came out at night to watch him as he sat by his fire, or the beautiful deer which ran across his patch. He sang funny songs for the children, and taught them all sorts of games. When it came time to go on, they begged him to stay. Never before had they been so amused, but on he went, and when his bags were full, and he had a goodly store of food, he started on to carry out his splendid thought. Oh, it was a grand thing he was going to do. The little boat went on, till houses were no more to be seen. Splendid forests lined the banks here and there. Then he paused, for this was what he was seeking, a place where no one lived. He landed and went about with a bag of seeds, and when he reached an open place in the forest, he planted seeds in cuttings of the vines and trees. Then he wove a brush fence about them to keep the deer away. Then he hastened back to his boat and drifted on. In many, many places he landed and planted seeds. And all the orchards of the Ohio and Mississippi Valley we owe to this man. Years after, when settlers came looking for a place to live, they chose these spots where, to their great surprise, they found all sorts of trees loaded with fruit. This man's name was John Chapman, but he was nicknamed Johnny Appleseed. And that is In the Orchard, a poem by George Weatherby, and Josephine Scribner Gates's version of the story of Johnny Appleseed. And for those of you who are not from the United States, Johnny Appleseed was a real man, John Chapman. He, of course, was not just a mythological figure. He was a trained orchardist, and he, on purpose went around planting specifically orchards, and a number of other things. Not all of them were as helpful as he had planned. He had planted a good many bits of dog fennel during his travels. He thought that they would have medicinal purposes, but it turns out that they were just an invasive species. This is Dan Scholz of the Folktale Project. Don't forget that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Overcast, anywhere you like to get your podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter at Folktale Project. You can find us on Auto Radio, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere you like to listen. And you can always head over to folktaleproject.com, where you'll find a new story waiting for you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This week is our last week of new tales for the year, concluding with our annual retelling of The Night Before Christmas. Next week, we'll be recapping the most listened to stories from 2022. And if you head over to Twitter right now at Folktale Project, you'll find a poll active where I'm asking if we're going to stick with our current format of reading through a storybook, book by book, or if we should return to our grouped by regions format. It's up to you, so be sure to vote and let me know. You can also vote at folktaleproject.com. As always, thank you so much for listening.